ahead and just jump things off. My name is Shannon Denna. I'm a computer science teacher at Fremd High School. I know that there are several teachers here from or students here from Fremd, as well as from other students in the district, so welcome. And we have with us a few Baxter employees that are going to share their experiences in a variety of fields related to biology and chemistry, tech and engineering, and everything in between. Part of the reason why we wanted to do this was because several of my students have been asking me about ways that they can connect their interests with technology and the sciences. And so that's what we're hoping to accomplish today. And I was going to record this as well for other students who are not able to come today. And then that way I can share the recording with them if that's all right.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm thinking if you all want to go ahead and start introducing yourselves and just talk about your roles within Baxter, your experience, your educational levels. A lot of the questions that students have submitted when they register for the event, they were asking things about like, you know, what types of degrees did you need to do what types of jobs? They were also asking what exactly does X job title mean in the, you know, real world. And then also just what types of activities or internships did you do in college? I know for many of you all, just for me as well, college was a while ago. And so maybe the jobs that you did and internships you had aren't the same as what current grads would have, but maybe if you've been involved with new hires or hiring committees, you might have experience as to what you would recommend to them. Some of these students are going into college next year and they're just kind of not really knowing where to start. So, so that's kind of just some background information. And if you, let's see, Lori, if you want to start us off and go ahead and then we can just kind of hop around from each of you.
Sure.
Baxter employees.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm Lori Brand, and my position at Baxter is as a software quality engineer. And my educational background, I have an undergraduate degree in chemistry. It's worth pointing out that after I got that degree, I like was a stay-at-home mom for over a decade, not necessarily something I would recommend because your education kind of goes stale. And so I realized when my kids all got into school and I wanted to actually re-enter the workforce, I kind of felt like I wanted to do something with my life other than I don't know, be in those volunteer groups or something. I decided that the best way to find a job that I found meaningful to challenge myself and where I felt like I was making the world better, I was going to have to go back to school. And so I went back to school and I got a master's in biomedical engineering. One of the reasons I chose that at the time that I went back to school, the economy was not doing so well. And I figured, I knew that was a good field. I knew that people were still hiring in that. You know, and I couldn't be a tennis professional. If I could have been a tennis pro, I'd have been a tennis pro. But so it was something that I thought would challenge me and I can make the world better. And while I was getting my master's, I needed to get some work experience because I knew that when I got done with my degree, I would need some work experience. And so I took some very humble jobs. I took a job working at a lab. So I did my master's at Northwestern. And so I did a minimum wage job, just kind of doing grunt work in the lab, basically doing whatever they asked me to do. I was able to kind of tweak it on my resume so it sounds more glamorous, but it was really just like grunt work, like whatever they needed me to do, I just did. But I was able to, and then I also got an internship that summer at Scientific Device Laboratories, which is a smaller company, but I got a job there as a quality intern or something like that. And again, that was for minimum wage. And I worked quite hard doing some of the jobs I did over the summer at that internship weren't always so glamorous, but I did them. I did them well. And the company that had me do that internship, they ended up really liking me and they asked if I could stick around during the school year. And so I stayed there during the school year, just continuing to work for them when I could, making it work in my schedule. But because I took those two kind of, lower level jobs, I was able to use those as a springboard for when I got my degree. I was able to kind of work that to get my job as a systems test engineer. That was my first job out of school. And I'll say that the reason I took the job as a systems test engineer was it was the first job I was offered. I had applied for some different positions and I was interviewed, but I didn't get the position. But I had a friend who at the time was working at Fresenius Kabi, who was she was a systems engineer there, but they had a systems test engineer position open. I interviewed for it. She put in a good word for me. And I'll say that she was somebody that I worked with at that lab at Northwestern. So that unglamorous position that I took, she was doing it too. She got a job at this company. And I didn't even know when I took the job what a systems test engineer was. Or actually, I knew by the time I took the job, but when she told me to apply for it, I said, I don't even know what a systems test engineer is. And she's like, oh no, you'll be fine. You know, and so I had to like Google like what one was. Applied for it. I got the job. I took it. And you know, I've just been moving since then. So, and it turned out to be a great job. And if I hadn't taken that job, because when I was at Northwestern, the stuff I was doing was more research focused, I wouldn't have realized that I have an affinity for failure. I like when things fail. I think it's really intriguing. Why does something not work? And can we break it? And that kind of set the stage, this discovery that I liked failure of the stuff that I've been interested in since. From there, from Fresenius Kabi, I went over to Baxter, took a job as a systems engineer because we were going to design some database. It was going to be this really great thing. And then on the second day of my new job, the project got massively downsized. 3 months after I took the job, the project got canceled. And I was really panicked. They said that they weren't going to let anybody go, but I was very panicked about it. And there was another position at Baxter as a Kappa engineer at their plant. And again, I took the position because I was worried that I wasn't going to have a job. And that ended up, again, being really great because with Kappa, you investigate with NCRs, nonconformances, you investigate why something failed. And that reinforced for me that I like that. So I did that for a few years, realized that there wasn't a lot of advancement opportunity at the plant, but over in Tech 2, there was a systems engineer position or a containers engineer position open. This was one of the first jobs I actually applied for that I didn't feel like I had a gun at my head. And I took my time. I knew that the manager was highly regarded as a great manager. The team was great. I took the position. I did that for like a year and a half. And then an opportunity came up as a software quality engineer. And it was something I'd always wanted to get into. I felt like it was like merging everything that I was good at, the systems test and the quality. And, at Baxter, they usually want you to stay in a position at least 2 years before you apply to a different one. And we don't have a lot of those positions come up. And I asked my manager, I'd only been there like a year and a half. I said, would it be okay if I applied for it? And my manager was so lovely. He was like, go ahead. And so I did. I applied for it, even though technically I wasn't supposed to, but I got permission to do it. And I got the position. And I'll say also that I was missing several of the things that, if you look at the job requirement, I was missing quite a few of those. But I got the position, I think, if I had to guess, primarily based on the good job I was doing in my previous position. So they just cut me a break and they let me give it a whirl. And I've loved the position ever since. So that's how I ended up here. That was a long intro. Sorry about that. Okay.
Let's see, Jim, how about we hear your story? You're still muted, Jim. I think you're still muted.
Jim, you're muted. You're muted. Mute. You got to unmute.
It double mutes you in the Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you go down to the lower.
Yeah.
Okay, there you are. Okay. Oops.
I had muted my microphone so I could cough, but I didn't know about the double mute. I've been with Baxter for 2.5 years. Small company I worked for was purchased by Baxter, and we were integrated. My background is I got a degree in electrical engineering many years ago, but the path wasn't direct to finding myself to where I am now, which is as a principal software engineer, which means I'm old and I program, almost literally. One thing I want to get across, and Lori kind of spoke to this in a different way, but your 20s might not be what you expect them to be. It took me until I was 29 to get a job in the computer industry, and that was after a lot of weird steps along the way, including running a restaurant and delivering pizzas to put myself through more school to find my way to computer science. And I was pursuing a second degree in computer science with the purpose of either getting that degree or getting a job. And I got a job in 1999. programming the back end of websites, which I did for about 10 years. And just have gone on from there. I do programming of all types pretty much, mostly in C# in the .NET world. But when you have to do some work in web, you have to do JavaScript as well. Something important that good recruiters realize is that it is less important what language you learn than that you know how languages work programming wise. Difference from language to language is just syntax. So if you know one and you know how to program in general, you can pick up another one in a short amount of time. That said, from what I've seen, if you want to get into mixing biology and technology, a language like Python is extremely popular right now and a good one to learn because it's rigid and very rules focused, but that can go a long way towards like a bioinformatics type career or other things. I feel like I'm rambling at this point, so I'm open to any questions along the way.
All right. Karen, how about we hear from you?
All right. Hi, I am Karen Fellows. I am a lead system designer or a principal systems engineer here at Baxter. And I work with Lori, Jim, and Rashmi. I'm actually remote from them. I'm located in a different location, but that's, some of the joy and challenge of our, our modern workforce. So I have a bachelor's degree in bioengineering and electrical engineering. I went straight from my undergrad in bioengineering to get a master's in electrical engineering. And the reason I went straight through was because I graduated in the middle of a technical recession, and it was a hard time for new grads to find jobs. So, as Jim alluded, your 20s can be different than you think they're going to be. A lot of times you're at the whim of, what the economy and society is doing right now, as you guys can tell, because we're in the middle of COVID, right? So my first job after grad school was actually at Baxter in Round Lake. I worked as an electrical engineer on some of the ambulatory infusion and syringe infusion pumps at that time. I found that job by talking to somebody over the internet in the mid-90s about finding your first job. So I was actually talking on a Women in Science and Engineering discussion board. So I don't know if Lori might be familiar with WiseNet. It was called WiseNet back in the day, and it was just a discussion board. And I was like, hey, finishing my master's in electrical engineering, what do I do now? When I was an undergrad, I did some research assignments. I had my independent studies. I worked a lot. My bachelor's was from Syracuse University, and I worked a lot with the medical school that was there. So we did some circuitry for them. We had a neuroscience research institute that I was able to do some research oriented stuff. Research is interesting, but it's not always the best if you're looking for a job. So I highly recommend anybody who is going to school, if you're going to a school that offers co-op education, definitely take the co-op. If you have to do another year to get the co-op, take the co-op. I live in Rochester, New York, and I've been here for 18 years now. And one of the local universities has a lot of co-op opportunities, and I've done a lot of undergraduate recruiting, for new college hires, first college hires. And if you have a co-op, that's the first thing we'll talk about is a co-op. If you don't have a co-op, I'll talk about what was your senior design, like how did you deal with challenges, what was your worst classes kind of questions. But I think the ability to get real world experience is fantastic. So I'm always jealous of people who have that co-op experience.
Karen, can you explain for those undergrads, or sorry, like the younger underclassmen who may not know what a co-op is, what that is?
So a co-op is, as part of your educational experience, you have to go out, interview for a job, and you get a job with a local or it could be national employer. So they take you on kind of as a junior engineer, a junior technologist, and they'll give you tasks. Some institutions do it more than others. Baxter in Round Lake had a few co-ops, Round Lake and Deerfield, and I assume that's still going. We had a few in my location, which is Medina, New York. Again, depends on the economy. It depends on what kind of projects you're doing right now, but it's usually sponsored through your university. And it usually does add a year to your education. So instead of being in a 4-year program, that you generally are in a 5-year program, but you get that work experience and they pay you. So you are paid, and you're paid usually it's a pretty decent salary. So you get like a junior engineer type thing, and it's good to get, first of all, you get a break from your schoolwork, and second, it's good to see how these companies work and talk to some of the other engineers and make those contacts. So yeah, I would definitely recommend the co-op route. I have a second master's degree in systems engineering, so that's sort of why I saw questions of co-op like a paid internship. Yes, it is. It is a paid internship, very similar, but it usually is involved. Your university will do more to format it, and in other every university is slightly different in the way they approach the sciences, engineering, and technology. But there's no good or bad way to do it, but that's just one of my observations from being out in the, as Jim said, being old. And I have worked in both medical devices and diagnostics, and I've also worked in software defined radios, tactical radios. So I have a big stint there too. So that's my background.
All right, how about Hannah? We can't hear you very well.
Like I can see your headphones in, but I can't
Yeah.
hear.
I know sometimes you have to adjust the, like under the microphone, like hit the little up arrow and then choose where you want the audio to come from. Like if you want it to come from your headphones or whatever, you might have to adjust that setting.
Or maybe if you just unplug the headphones. Yeah, that's what I did. Okay, and it's still kind of quiet. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. Let's see. How about we I'll go on to
yeah, we can go into Rashi and come back.
Okay, and then maybe Hannah, if you want to leave and rejoin the Zoom, sometimes that helps. I've had that work with students sometimes.
All right, Rashi, you're on.
Hi, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Rashmi, and currently I'm working as a software engineer in Baxter. My background is I did my bachelor's in computer engineering, and after that, like I worked as a software engineer for a year or so, and then I came to US and I did my master's in software engineering. So during my master's, in like third semester, I started to look for internship, and in that time, Baxter was like around in the area. So I got the internship opportunity, summer internship opportunity with Baxter. And then in my fourth semester also, I continued my like second internship. And after that, I got full-time job in the Baxter. So basically, it's like kind of my first job starting from internship. still, and right now I'm like working almost like 5 years in the Baxter. So I worked on different projects in the Baxter, and I also got the opportunities to basically work on different technologies, different like desktop application, web application, and currently basically it's the reporting. So in the medical or healthcare products, reporting is one of the important part. Like basically you get all the data and generate the report based on whoever needs it, like pharmacists, hospital staff, or anywhere administrator. So currently I'm kind of working on that. So that's kind of my background.
Hannah, do you want to try again? Huh.
Okay. You're showing up. Oh, Hannah, you're showing up as mute in Zoom. Sometimes if you go down to the lower left-hand part of your screen, you might be able to do this.
Well, on my end, she doesn't show that she's muted.
Oh. Yeah, not on mine. That might be your end.
Yeah, my end it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
Okay.
Do any of you students have any questions that you wanted to ask at the moment, things that have come up?
So how has one question I have, how has COVID impacted like how the Baxter works, and like how has like COVID played like an impact on your careers?
So do you guys mind if I
jump right on in.
I'm gonna jump right on it. So we are all remote from each other, and we have been since March, about a year now. So I live in Western New York, and I'm associated with a manufacturing plant there where we make our Spectrum pumps. Like I said, I'm not originally from anywhere, but I spent my teenagers in Buffalo Grove, so I have that Northern Illinois connection. But I've lived in Rochester for 18 years now. And as the technologies changed and the development work that we did at that plant's changed, I've kind of remained on in my role, and I'm complete remote from everybody, and I will be after COVID. But so this is an interesting position to be in. But I think what's interesting for me is to see how the technologies come together, and how well the teams work together, being remote from one another. I've done both distance learning, education wise. When I got my second master's, that was remote, and it's different, but each method has benefits. Good for you, Lori.
Okay. So I'll say when lockdown first happened, I didn't realize it was going to be so long. So at first I was like, okay with it. And then as it started to drag on, I actually got a little bummed out about it. But then, eventually you just kind of buck up and you say, hey, this is the way that it is. And then once I think I turned that mental corner, I've actually realized it hasn't been so bad. I'm extremely lucky because I don't have any small kids at home anymore. My kids all went to college. If I would have had like a 4-year-old, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. But I work with one of the products I support is a lot of the research and development is out of India. And I have meetings almost every day at like 7 a.m. And a lot of times I want to be able to meet with some of the different engineers before the 7 a.m. meetings, because I want to be able to talk. We've got like some verification people who won't be at the meetings or just doing verification. So a lot of times I'll be online at like 5 or 6 a.m. And so I can work with them before I end up having like a few hours of meetings, because they're going to go. India is about a 11.5-hour difference. So if I were working at an office right now, that wouldn't work so well, right? The way that I can do it at home, it's actually made it pretty good. I'll come online in the morning. I'll do all that, and then maybe at like say 11 o'clock, I'll go downstairs. I've got a small gym in my house. Then I'll exercise and then I'll come back up. Like I've got like more flexibility. And I think it's leveled the playing field for people. I think it's made us much more global. I think before I didn't even realize it, but before when we were in Round Lake is like our research center. It were one of them. It was much more like, this is where we are. And then the people who weren't here, like they would WebEx in, but we kind of had that feeling that like this is home base. And it's made us much more global. I think it's given more people a better voice. I'm like way cool with it now, but that's just me.
Yeah, I personally prefer it.
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah.
And I told my boss we have regular one-on-ones to make sure we keep the lines of communication open. But I told him yesterday, I said, what I got done in the last month, which was a lot of overtime. I said, that doesn't get done if I'm in the office.
Yeah.
My office is 45 minutes away with traffic. And guess what? I'm not spending all night there.
Yep, I agree.
But with my setup in my basement here, this is my bar in my basement. But I don't drink alone and I live alone.
Okay.
With this setup, if I've got an idea, I just come downstairs and go to work. And if the work is there and it needs to get done, I get it done. But guess what? If that happens on a weekend and I have to go to the office, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I want to have a life. But seeing as much of my life outside of work is, I do theater. I act on stage, which has been really cut back because COVID.
Yeah.
So I got nothing to do, so I might as well work.
Yeah.
There was a question that was sent to me in the chat that says, would you say a background in science is necessary for your jobs at Baxter, or is simply the tech background enough?
So I happen to know that Baxter, at least when I was over at the plant, I used to do more interviewing. I know that we won't consider somebody for an engineering position. They can do other things. They could be like a quality analyst or something, but we won't give somebody an engineering degree unless they have like a science, a math, or we won't give somebody like an engineering job unless they have like a science degree, a math degree, if you have physics, right? Or computer science, but if you have a history degree, you won't get an engineer at Baxter or an engineering position. But that's just the way that we are right now. That could potentially change.
Yeah, a lot of companies are like that. They want, if you're on an engineering position, they want that engineering degree.
Well, I think the question was, did you need to have did it have to be like chemical engineering or bioengineering? Could it be like computer engineering and then still work within a bioengineering department? Like,
yes,
that's the question.
Yeah.
And is that pretty standard across the medical industry? Do you think medical tech industry?
Yeah, it's standard. And what's really interesting is I do have a bachelor's in bioengineering, is that I find that if your bachelor's is in that, you have to prove yourself more. Basically, because a lot of people are so old school and closed-minded and they don't know what a bioengineering degree is. So you kind of have to say, okay, I took the same circuit classes as the electrical engineers, or I took the same statics and dynamics, or all the mechanical engineering classes. I'm basically a mechanical engineering engineer. And this is why the co-ops would help too, because that gives you that experience. Or these are the chemical engineering classes I took. So yeah, I think having that actual engineering degree. There's a few universities that give you a degree that's, instead of like a bachelor's of science degree, they'll give you a engineering technology degree. And some companies treat those differently because usually those degrees, they're fantastic because less math, but usually sometimes companies don't respect those degrees as much, which is a shame because I've known some very genius, brilliant people who have had those degrees. So if you are looking for a university and you do want engineering, I would definitely look one that gives you a BS degree. Bachelor's of Science.
And I think it's become more important over the years. I think 20 years ago when the internet first came around, you saw a far broader range of degreed people because we just needed programmers.
Yeah. And people would leave without a good, leave college without a degree and just go work.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be head of a department at an interactive agency. And I once hired a guy whose degree was in photography, but he taught himself how to program, and he could program, and now he leads a team for a big investment company in Milwaukee. But like I say, times have changed. We've had 20 years to get used to the fact that we need programming degrees.
Yeah.
So getting a programming job without something close to a programming degree is tougher.
And I think it also depends on the environment you go into too. Like, so for medical devices, like we do at Baxter, we're a regulated environment. So if you are, creating something, the FDA and audit want to make sure that you have people, degreed people, or luckily we don't have to have PEs, but a similar type of thing. And in another field I worked in, which was more DoD related, it was the same thing. You had to have a certain amount of your employees had to have a certain degree from an accredited university. They really liked it if you had certain certifications. So like I have a project management certification, which is something they wanted systems engineers to have, if you were working with the US government. So a lot of it's, some of the more regulated fields are like that. You probably would see a lot less in entertainment, or if you're doing game design. But game design comes with other issues. So yeah.
What I was told years ago on the programming side is, if you want to go into game design, fine. You're not going to get paid a lot because everybody wants to do it.
And you're going to be working forever. Yeah. We've been working a lot on our project, but
we have, haven't we?
Yeah. We're like,
is there any advice you can give in terms of, I know you had talked about, you said you'll be working forever or whatnot, but there's so many tech jobs out there now for programmers and engineers, and what kinds of things should maybe college grads be looking for in terms of like an employer where they can grow with, or like, is there anything that you wish you would have known when you were looking for your job, or that you would recommend?
For me, the first job was the first job.
Right.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, take it. Right. Exactly. Right.
I mean, at the time I was delivering pizzas, so it was a big raise.
Yeah.
I think the biggest piece of advice I can give once you get a job, stay curious, keep doing new things. I mean, one of the questions I would ask prospective programmers when I interviewed was, do you have a hobby website? And granted, I was interviewing for people that would program the back end of websites. But it was the one question that I felt, if I got a yes answer and they talked about their hobby website in this context, it meant I had a pretty good candidate, because it meant they were interested enough about the work that we do to do it outside of work. So keep learning, regardless of what you're learning. Keep learning outside of work.
And also, you might not get the exact job that like you had said, you took the job, right? That's how I took my first job, right? It was the first job that I actually got offered that was, relatively in the field. And, even if it turns out not to be the right job, you'll learn what you like and what you don't like. And while you're in a position, you'll be able to really look around, right? And see what other people are doing, and you'll get exposure to other departments and other groups. And then even, like I was at Fresenius Kabi, I got exposure to lots of other things. And then I knew some people who left Fresenius Kabi and went over to Baxter. So you're even expanding your network that way. And so, you're able to then kind of wiggle your way into maybe another company or another position, just based on who you know, or what you've seen, or what you've learned you like and what you don't like. So it doesn't have to be the perfect fit. You're not married to that first job.
Yeah. Hannah, do you want to give it a third time? See if maybe it'll work? No, I'm so bummed. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it's too bad.
I have one other. Is it
Go
okay to
ahead.
ask a question? So, like, okay, I know, but like, how intensive of a math education do you need to like work at Baxter? Like, what kind of math background is like recommended?
Just
Well,
get the engineering degree, right? Or get the programming degree, right?
for I can be completely honest, is that I
Yeah.
did not have the highest GPA my freshman year of engineering school. And because you guys are at Fremd, is that where you're at?
Yeah.
Mostly. Some students are from other schools into the district, but we're all District 211.
Okay, so I graduated with like taking all the honors and AP classes from Stevenson, right? So I had AP calculus and I had AP physics and woo, yay!
Yeah.
And when I went to university, I had to retake those because for engineering students, they didn't accept the AP things. I mean, it could have changed by now, but this was, early 90s. So I took calculus over again and I almost failed it because it was difficult and it was tough and I just didn't quite get it yet. For the degree we had to take 4 semesters of calculus. So Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, Calc 4. Then we had to take differential equations with linear algebra, which I actually didn't mind. I like that one. And then we had to take statistics, which I almost failed. I think I had to take math all the way. I didn't have to take it senior year. And it depends on who you are. Like I'm an applied person. I have to apply it. Like the first time I saw a spectrum analyzer, I suddenly understood Fourier transforms, which is something they're trying to tell you in calculus.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. Yeah. And it's as some of it's just, it doesn't mean anything about you. It's how it's taught. And a lot of it has to do with, how it's applied. Engineering math is so much easier than anything else when you can see what you're doing, at least for me. And that's how I think and how I learn. But yeah, you do have to take a lot of math. If you're a math whiz, it will be fantastic. You'll love it. If not, it's something you get through and at one point the light goes off and you're like, oh, this is what they meant. And it's usually like years later. And math is just trying to explain the world we live in, and everything around it. So even your most like math intense classes, it's a lot of it's just how it's taught. And like I said, eventually you just get it. Yeah.
I would say that part of math is you won't always use what you learn directly, but you will learn things from learning it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's okay to fail. Oh, yeah.
Yes, and I was going to emphasize that. It is absolutely okay to fail. And I will speak quite honestly as someone who I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison out of high school. It's a top 25 school, but it's a huge school. And the thing that I learned very quickly is college is not high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in high school, I was not one that was big on studying. And I got by and, got good grades and everything except English. But I was a good grammar student and a good writer. And I also want to emphasize it is important to write well.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yeah.
Let me say that again. It is important to write well.
Yeah.
When I left for college, my dad bought me one gift, and it was Strunk and White's The Elements of Style. Because he understood how important it was. He spent 52 years as a professor in Milwaukee and wrote grants and wrote papers. And it's important to write well. If you don't, no matter how smart you are, you won't look it.
Yep, because you send a lot of emails and people read your emails, right?
Yep.
And even if you can't write, and if you have an issue, with it, you can get there. You can learn how to write. I was not a natural writer. I had a learning disability, but it comes with like writing and getting things out. But the moment I got behind a computer and I could like format my thoughts and just throw everything down, it's something you can learn.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the worst courses I took in Madison, it was my last semester there, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it was a geography course, which I took because it was the only course I could get. It was, there was a time before the internet when touch tone registration was all the rage in college. And even that was brand new at the time. And you couldn't beg a teacher for a class like we had before. And this geography class was the only thing I could get. I hated it. It was boring, but I got a B when we had to write a paper because I knew how to write, even though it was mostly quotes from other sources.
And
But
you can learn. Yeah, like you said.
In that semester, I got a D in that. I got a D in second semester of physics for physics majors. And I failed linear algebra, and I was put on academic probation, and I left.
Wow.
It's okay to fail.
Yeah. And everybody will, especially as an engineer. I mean, because this is how you're going to learn.
Yeah.
And it's not only you making that decision. That's the key thing. Because when you're in a group and you're in a team, you know, usually, you're going to be learning from that. And everyone thinks different, and everybody takes a different approach at things. So I think that's really good too.
For me, it was a large. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I want to build off of that because I keep telling my students that when they're, quote, in the real world, they're going to have to work on teams and in group projects and collaborate. Whenever I hear my students say, well, I prefer to work alone, I'm like, yeah, good luck.
It's total
So does everyone.
Yeah.
So does everyone. Yeah.
So Karen and I are in different, and same with Jim. Karen and I work very closely together, right? Karen's the product design owner of a product that I'm the quality lead for. And Karen, what we talk like every day, probably, right? We have to get along, right? We have to be able to work together. She might have some R&D needs. I might have some quality needs, and we gotta find a way to make it work. And it's not just the two of us, right? But you and I work together like a lot, but then there's like the risk team, there's the clinical team, there's like we have to make a lot of people happy with the product that there's marketing, right? And regulatory, and like all these people, you need to be able to get along with others. You don't want to be like, you don't want to just give in and be wishy-washy because you want everybody to like you, because you need to get your point across. But you also need to hear what they're saying and either come to a meeting of the minds, or maybe, maybe the other person has a better idea, or maybe you think that you're actually right. You need to stick to your guns, but you need to do it in a respectful way where you're simply communicating the information and not trying to browbeat somebody. That's like super critical. Don't you think, guys?
And it's hard, right?
Yeah.
It's completely hard. I don't know if you ever, you're going to win some and lose some. And and I think be yourself, right? I mean, because you're going to get a lot of comments about your personality types, and you try to learn and you try to get to grow. But I don't know, like the biggest faux pas I've always made were when I wasn't my true self. Like when somebody said, you had to be harder, you had to be like, I mean, complete example. I was on this killer project. It's not at Baxter. It wasn't at Baxter, but I was trying to get somebody, a mechanical engineer, to get something done for me. And my boss is like, you have to be too firm. You're too nice. You're too nice. You have to be firmer. So I ended up like trying to be really firm with this guy, and his father, he was out because his father had a heart attack that week. And I was like, oh crap.
Oh my.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm like, this is just flowing up in my face.
Yeah.
When it comes to getting along on a team, I think what I've learned over the years is you have to be open to other people's ideas, and you have to be willing to admit that you're wrong.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's really important.
You're not always right. None of us are.
Yeah.
And everybody comes from a different perspective. So you have to be open to hearing what they have to say, and then build a productive discussion from your different perspectives, and you'll come to a decent solution. But yeah, everybody prefers to work alone. Because when you're alone, you are always right, even when you're wrong.
And I think even if you're a little extroverted, I think the extrovert introvert thing really isn't super true. But even, I mean, you need that time to yourself.
Yeah, and like especially if you are a software developer.
Yeah.
Definitely you want to work alone.
Right. I was going to point out one thing. When I took that was it the third. Well, when I took one of those jobs, the job at the plant, where I was the quality engineer for the nonconformances. When I applied for that position, I just want to point out that I was missing like a third of the things that they asked for, right? I was missing like a third of them. And I wasn't even going to apply, but somebody in HR said, no, you really need to. And I just did it to humor her because I didn't want to, because she was like in HR and she was going to try, I wanted to to work with her, right? Because I was hoping that when I don't get this position, maybe I can get a different one or something. So I just thought I'd humor her. So I went ahead and I went through with it and applied. I actually ended up getting that position that I really liked. But I asked my manager like 6 months later when we had a successful project and we all went out for drinks afterwards. I'd had a drink, I knew him better, and I said, "So Paul, why?" I'm just curious, why'd you guys ever hire me? Because I saw like all the things you were asking for and I was missing a third of them. Like I really didn't think I was going to get that position when you interviewed me. He said, "Well, I figured you were teachable." And that's why he hired me. For some reason, he thought I was teachable. And that ended up, I was able to convey that somehow when I interviewed. So that's something to know too.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I saw the text thing about what kind of projects, jobs do you work on? And I don't know if Rashmi or Jim want to talk about our project, because we Lori, like I said, we talked together, and it's kind of interesting. If they wanted to say anything. The other thing I would say is, even if you see something as an engineer that might not be like super interesting at first, I'm sure you can dig into it and it will become like fascinating. So
yeah, for bioengineers, my understanding is like Baxter has like kind of technical development program, and I think it's still going on. So I mean, I know like they had the students there like who has that bioengineering degree, and mainly their job was basically kind of getting the requirement from different healthcare personnel, like someone like pharmacists, doctors, or the basically people work in hospital and healthcare area. And then basically it was kind of a research job, and then kind of based on those requirements, like develop algorithms and kind of those kind of pass on those kind of research projects to the other teams. So yeah, so that's my understanding is like those kind of research or getting the requirements from the healthcare personnel. Those are kind of some of the jobs that I know for specific to bioengineers. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say too, so like my master's is in biomedical engineering. So like, I don't know if you mean like somebody who has like a job title as a bioengineer. I don't actually know anybody who has a job title as a bioengineer, but I know people have degrees in biomedical engineering, and with degrees in biomedical engineering, you can do just about anything.
Yeah.
Just about anything. I mean, it's a very versatile degree. And as a matter of fact, I'd even say that when I was, at Northwestern, getting that degree, we had some kind of job fair that I went to, and I had these people who wanted to talk to me, and they were like some kind of trading firm. They were like in finance. And I was like, you guys, I've never like even taken a business class. Right. And they were like, yeah, but if you can do this, you can totally do that. So I think there's a lot that you can do with a biomedical engineering degree, but you can't do a lot of engineering with, say, music degree. Maybe you can, I don't know. But employers are really going to scrutinize that you have, like Karen said, you need to, in an audit, at least at a big company like Baxter, I don't know about a small company, but at a big company like Baxter, HR has to be able to produce the resumes or the records that show that the people doing these jobs have the education to support those jobs. And Baxter's aware of that. So they won't hire you as an engineer if you have a degree in history.
And I just want to jump in there for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I agree that they won't hire engineering positions unless you have that degree.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other jobs within
True.
Baxter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're so right. Yeah.
So what I wanted to just say is that my boss, who is now a director level, so he's moved up the ranks, and it took a while, but he has a degree in English and he's moved up through the ranks in Baxter. My degree is in medical technology. So you've heard from an awful lot of engineers, and I just wanted to throw out there that bio people exist in Baxter as well. And it's really important. My son has a degree in chemistry. So it's really from the perspective of what should you guys do, what you should do is what's going to give you the most versatility. And I think that it's really important to pick something that you enjoy and then just take whatever opportunities come up and run with them, because my degree is in medical technology, and I started working in a lab and with baboons and just doing all kinds of cool stuff. And then I got into IT with Baxter, and it's a long path how I got there, but stayed in IT and rose through those ranks. And that was an awesome opportunity. And that opened another opportunity now in quality. So my point that I think it's important for you guys to know is no matter what you start out at, and no matter what degree you should get a degree that is going to be versatile for you, and just keep open to new opportunities, no matter where they come up. I think
Char, introduce yourself, because nobody knows you know what I mean? Like, why, you know what I mean? So Char's the one who reached out to me. I'm in Baxwise, it's Baxter Women in Science Engineering, asked me if I could put this together. But Char, talk about it, because I think is your Shannon, are you Char's daughter? I can't remember what the connection is.
No, Shannon is not my daughter, but she's my niece.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, I knew there was some connection. Okay.
And I wasn't sure if I was supposed to introduce her or not because she wasn't on the list of names. And so
I didn't realize that Char was going to be like one of our speakers. I'm sorry, Char. I didn't realize.
No, that's fine. And when I talked to you earlier, Lori, I was planning to just kind of sit in the background and not say anything. But and I'm loving the conversations, and I just want to put out there that there is another side of the world besides just engineering. And I'd like to make sure that the kids are aware of that. So
we always do that. Yeah, sorry.
I think it's been an awesome conversation, and I really hope that you guys are absorbing all of the knowledge that we're trying to give you, because I've learned a lot from today, and I hope that you guys are too.
Now, along those lines, so let's say a student did get a degree in chemistry or biology or physics and not the engineering component. What types of roles does that open them up to, and would they be employable within your company or other companies like that, or is it more the engineering component?
No, they absolutely. My last boss, the one I had before this one, he had a physics degree. Physics, everybody loves physics, right? If you can get a physics degree, you can demonstrate that you're bright. I don't know about programming, like Jim on your side, like if people would, I don't know, but I know like at Baxter, there's a ton of jobs you can get with a physics degree. And there's a lot of people there. We hire a lot of
research.
Yep. And there's a lot of biologists that we hire. But what else did you say? Was it we hire tons of chemists, tons of biologists, tons of we hire people with physics degrees. Yep.
I have a good friend who doesn't work for Baxter, but she's in the Bay Area and has worked for a lot of pharmaceutical companies, and she's a toxicologist, and her background is biology.
Yeah.
And she got a master's in, I think, neurobiology, but it's still biology. And then there's a couple of questions like, do you just need a bachelor's degree? Do you need a master's degree? Do you need a PhD? And there's all kinds of different thoughts behind that. So, do what you want to do and what makes you, makes you
get
happy.
A bachelor's at minimum.
Yeah, bachelor's at minimum. Yeah,
At
that's
minimum,
probably
you
the
have to
best
have
thing.
a bachelor's, right?
Now, do you all feel that it's necessary to go from undergrad right into grad school, or do you recommend students? I mean, I know several of you said that you did that because of the job market at the time. Would it be more advantageous for these students to get their undergrad, start working, and then go back to grad school? What do you recommend?
It depends. It really depends on what you're doing with your life. Because I've done both, right? I did my first master's right through, and then I got a master's afterwards when I was married and had a house. I didn't have kids yet, but it is so hard, once you're like working full time, and a lot of times you're really working. So, it depends. I mean, it depends. I've known people who've done it when they had, small children or stuff like that. But it's just, it's a different situation. When you go back, you have more work, you have more life experience. So your grades will probably be better. I mean, it's really a strange thing to say, than if you go straight through. But it's, it's definitely one of those, it depends type. I had this huge panic attack when I went for my master's degree. The first test I took, I was the youngest person there. A lot of people, like I said, there was a recession going on. So there was a lot of people going back for their degrees who had like 10 years of experience, and a lot of people who had PhDs already, because at that time, people would come over from China and they already have a PhD, but in the US system, you had to kind of go back. So I was completely just overwhelmed. with anxiety on that. And then my master's advisor was fantastic. He's like, no, you can do it. Don't worry about it. But yeah, you just have, a lot of it's about life experience and where you are too.
Yeah, I think it's a really individual. I will say the route I took wasn't either, right? Because I didn't work and I was a stay-at-home mom. I will say that route, although it worked for me, it was a heck of a gamble, and I had to scratch and claw my way back. To
Hard.
go back,
It's really hard.
to go after having so many years without being in school, to go back and find yourself in differential equations is like a mind bender. It was much more difficult. And I think it was also harder to try to get a job having been out of the market for a while. I don't know that I would necessarily, I think if you decide to take some time, or if you decide to have kids, I think if you can even at least work part-time, it might behoove you. I mean, I didn't do it, but I got really lucky. I don't know that anybody else would want to try to pull a stunt like that. Hindsight.
Do you feel that employers are now more family friendly?
Yes, so much more. So much more. Baxter is.
Yeah, Baxter's very, that's actually why I'm back at Baxter.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, why I decided to leave a company where I lived 2.5 miles from where I worked and have an hour commute and go back to Baxter was because I had a young child and I was just working. I mean, everybody who's on my project now will laugh because we are working a lot of hours, but
aren't we? Yeah.
And I used to tell people, I can't understand, like, we didn't have any work sharing, going back to like a part-time thing. And I said, when I was at Baxter in the 90s, they allowed this, why can't we? So yeah, a lot of companies some of them still are really old school. I think the last year has, a lot of people who have been trying to, have their kids be in school and try to work at the same time. I think there's, it kind of brought the idea of work-life and balance and like families home, right? We're going to have families. That's what we do. We're human beings. So yeah, but yeah.
And I think that I think that big companies, there's, I think back when I got out of college, you were happy to work for a company. Whereas now I think I could be wrong, but it seems like there's a greater interest now in getting the best talent. All right. The best talent to me seems like it has a little bit more leverage than it used to. And especially because we're more global now. Right. And so the big best companies, companies like Baxter, or even bigger, right? Companies like Google and things like that, they want the best talent, because the best employees, if they can't have that work-life balance, they'll just go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then those companies they won't retain them. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we are so appreciative of the time that you all shared with us today. And thank you so much for your time. Does anybody have any last closing remarks they wanted to share before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, so I had one question.
Mhm.
So I remember when like one of you were saying, oh, you had like a D in this class, oh, you had a D in that class. What really got me going, and I got your point, how saying that not everyone can excel at everything. Everyone has their own like individual strengths and weaknesses, but the main thing that got me going there was that if you're like looking for a job right out of college, and what if those, especially if it's like at a big company like Baxter, what if those employers see that on your college transcript?
They're not going to see it on your transcript.
I was going to say, they're not going to ask for your transcript.
Well, they ask for your transcript, but they're going to. Yeah,
it's cumulative.
What if they see, right? What if you see that you have like a below average GPA that could have, especially if you had like D's and F's in your classes? I'm thinking like, especially like even when applying to like college, or like applying for like a job that could have like such a negative impact on
I
your
have
resume.
done a lot of new college recruiting, within the United States and Puerto Rico. And generally you would want somebody with a 3.0, if you have a 2.8, that's fine. what we do is we ask people, tell us what you were doing at that time. Tell us about that class. What was so difficult? How did you adapt and grow from that experience? Were you working? Were you taking 21 credits? Because there's always reasons. And also talk to your professors. Make sure you're in their office every single day. They will not let you fail. If you are paying attention, if you're going to office hours, if you're working with your TAs, just make yourself seen. You'll get a C, but you won't fail. Go, Jim. I know Jim wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was going to speak just because I was the one that said I got 2 Ds and an F. And that was early in my college career. I took a semester off. In that semester, I taught myself how to be a better student. I went to a new school in the fall that was much, much smaller, the Milwaukee School of Engineering, which is a highly rated engineering school here in Milwaukee. With a very obvious name. And in my first year at MSOE, I got a 3.7. So it's about not giving up, I guess.
And one more thing too, if for some reason, there may be companies that say they may have a threshold. I don't know that there might be companies that have like a bare minimum, like maybe you got to have a 3.0 to work here. I don't really know. But if you don't, so maybe you can't get in at that company, but maybe you can get a job at a different company. And once that you like work for a couple of years, I don't even think that my GPA is on my resume. I had a really good GPA, but I don't think anybody cares.
That's the other thing I was going to say is that once you get that first job,
nobody cares.
You'll never be asked again.
Yeah.
And I just want to add to that. I know, and I see this working with all of you high school students, our student body, our school culture, everybody is obsessed with high grades. And I understand that because you want to get into a good school and you want to have a high GPA. And sometimes there's so much stress put on the high GPA that there's not as much stress put on the learning that backs the GPA.
Yep.
And so I think like what Karen and Jim were saying, first of all, recognizing that failure is going to happen. And if you never fail at anything and you don't have that experience happen in high school or in college, then you're going to get to your job. And then all of a sudden you're going to fail on a project and you're not going to know how to bounce back. So failing at something is not bad. It helps you learn resilience and it helps you learn that it's okay to make mistakes if you take something from it and then adapt. And so it gives you a talking point. It gives you something to grow from. And I honestly think that some of my biggest moments of strength have come from those hardest times in my life.
Because you've been there, you've been down before, and you've clawed your way back, right?
And like the students that I've worked with who've, failed several tests and I thought they were going to fail the semester. And then I start working with them every day and they come in for help and they do this and they do that. Those are the kids where their true grit and determination and their resilience show through. And not only did they learn, like Jim said, how to be better students, but they gained this confidence. So instead of feeling beat down, they now feel lifted up, right? And then also what Lori said, once you get your first job, nobody cares about your grade. It's kind of like,
not at all.
Your high school grades aren't the greatest. So then you go to community college for a year or two and you transfer in. Once you go to community college with your associates, that's what transfers in. Like, it's just never feel like something's ever too late. And just don't ever compromise your ethics or your beliefs. Just because you don't want to have a failure. Like I can't.
You mentioned something too that I kind of want to hit on is the whole community college aspect of things. And I think it's probably the same in Illinois as it is, where I am in New York State now. Do not overlook community college. If you can do like a 2.4 or 2.5 program, definitely do it. I've seen people who have come out of those programs who are, very, very like just, have a lot of practical experience and they're really on the ball and you save yourself so much money.
In our district, the students have the option for something called Harper Promise.
Harper,
If they have good attendance and keep their grades up, they can get free tuition to Harper for their associate's degree. And then Harper has a program where you can get direct admittance to other schools. I mean, it's fantastic. So don't.
And the U of I schools are some of the best in the country, right? So I'm sure being, Harper part of, the Illinois, thing that you can just transfer right into those schools. Yeah.
Right. And also one final question I had was that, like you said, don't like you were saying, I was kind of thinking the opposite. Once you were saying don't overlook community college, because I thought once I actually thought you would say don't like overlook some of those highly selective schools, because I've always had this thinking in mind. Mine is that, oh, if you go to like U of I, or oh, if you go to UC Michigan, you'll have like a better chance at like getting a job at those like FANG companies. And I remember one other speaker came in here and saying, yes, if you go to that school, you will have a good chance. But then if you cannot get into that school, like it's not the end of the world. And also there are like so many other ways how you can get into those companies. So how much truth or reality is there to that, and or not?
So you can get hired at Baxter as a contractor, right? And we hire people as contractors, like not full-time employees. But I don't know if they're even looking at. I have no idea if they look at the GPA, but like I know that there's less stringent standards to get hired as a contractor. And we sometimes, if people are a contractor and they work really hard and they show a lot of skill, that you can work well with them, they'll get hired on full time. And then again, nobody cares what after your first job. I don't really, and I'll say too, a lot of our vice presidents at Baxter, as a matter of fact, there's Kim Kalaki, who's one of our vice presidents right now. She went to Southern Illinois in SI, is it called SIU?
Yeah. SIU,
but it's of the Illinois schools, it's not as high. She's one of our vice presidents. I mean, we a lot of our vice presidents. I don't really know that many vice presidents who went to like Harvard or Yale or anything. I think most of them went to like, I don't know, just regular colleges.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some truth about the connections, like career connections when you're interviewing. But the other thing, you can always transfer in, right? And it's easier to transfer in than you would think. If you have that associate's degree and you have that.
Right. I was also hearing this one thing. I got that message on Schoology from our science department chair at Fremd. He was saying that Harper College has apparently made some partnership and had some agreement with U of I, saying that if you get into like Harper's like engineering program, finish your 2 years there at Harper, and then from Harper you're like guaranteed into U of I's engineering program, and you can go to like any of those like engineering majors within U of I's engineering program. That's also called Granger College of Engineering.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are so thankful for your time, and we do need to wrap it up. We thank you so much, and thank you, students, for joining us. Thank you, all our wonderful Baxter employees. We are very appreciative of your time, and that is all for today.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. This is great.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.